The parts of cosmos make up our body. There is an infinity of information printed in our DNA. Genetic inheritance is valuable data of our ancestors, but the gift of wisdom requires conscious will. Failure to activate the soul, knowledge is not a choice. Remain in its pure state of waiting to be activated. The knowledge has to do with the accumulation of teaching and behaviors assumed during the education stage in which the system domesticates people. You learn from experimentation, never from the memory that accumulates data and information that can be intentional errors to facilitate indoctrination. In school, we do not teach to think and question or mediate, not to feel in depths the validity to find out the truth of our inner being. And quiet people makes them docile and dependable on how to interpret the world and life. The conscious will do not flow because every initiative and opportunity of empowerment and the adventure in the first year of imprisonment. Machine are manufactured, not people who can expand their potential in society. Men and women learn in early life to serve the system of free will, condemning themselves and not being able to transcend. Unconscious and forced, human beings betray themselves. We have universal truth, knocking the soul, the ego, and the mind of the system make it difficult. The perception and understanding of the fundamental humanistical principle don't reach the citizen because it has been disturbed in childhood synchronization and the natural law. The right activities have a lot to do with legality of the act. Children are dressed in an armor that will prevent them as they grow and become adults, which they being emerged capable of transcending in community. In Theorem to Evolve, we mention the need for the second birth, which passes through the dark period, since everything known and learned based on false history must be discarded. Deprogrammed to be able to return to the origin. Reserve the hard disk of our person to be able to free enough space that facilitate the passage of access to our genuine essence. The system tells the story in the way that interests ensue you. The human being is much more than what we taught in schools or we see in advertisement. For the mind, nothing is truth if it doesn't think before, reason and judge with a concrete and determined logic. But all of this obey to a style of behavior that moves away from the natural. When the person focuses on feeling, reaches in the inner dialogue, and the soul manages to vibrate and project to the outside, so the person is the greatest expression of yourself. Clarity of wisdom comes from intuition and innocence, from feeling without prejudice or levels, from vibrating without limitation, and with love and the unity of our race. Contradicting the system is an act of rebellion that threatens the structure. It is indicated as a form of aggression or violence by those who simply consider an alternative simple but genuine and natural is the way to be wild, that is, not domesticated. The fundamental humanistic principles are found in the soul. They are inside, but they do not come to the light in society because of the manipulation of the system. The cosmic knowledge is not manifested by the influence. It is exercised in childhood to promote the mind and the ego, to encourage competition among brothers instead of cooperation. Specific guidelines and measurement are received from the early childhood education and continue in the academic fields. These criteria of behavior are supported by traditional media, especially television, to fit into the machinery or the system. Young people are confused by saying that the right thing is the normal and logical behavior of the citizen, pointing to the legal as what is great and good, preventing the conscious will have his option to lead a sovereign and legitimate way of feeling of the citizen. The unique and official thinking of the system prevents the vibration of the soul arising kindly and generously, overshadowed by the reason of the system, and the conditioning of judgment and value that gives labels and stereotypes, strengthening the passivity of the individual who accepts and submits voluntarily because this means being good and doing the right thing. But it's a fraud, a deception, an illusion. The mechanism for the adolescent to create and receive more false data and misinformation to align with the established doctrine make the few edges of their unique and special pieces finally feed into the system. And in the case of visionary or rebellious, he is discredited, and his role in society is ruined under the insult of being crazy. However, in a sick society, madness is a sign of virtue. The danger is not what certain individuals do without conscious and clumsy and love, follower of the system. What really dangerous is what people who become aware of the real situation fail to do, despite their vitality, do not face adversity, hiding their courage to take risk, soldier of the system. A certain degree of madness is indispensable among people to be able to jump the wall of the labyrinth of ignorance. State, religion, and market reinforce the tide to suffocate any sign of independence and autonomy. The constant influence achieves a state of siege, a dark curfew that is barely open, a tyrant that floats in the air but is not invisible, overwhelmed by the constant bombardment of fashion and laws. Celebrities perfectly representative their role so that the illiterate people follow their guidelines without question. The fear of being different is imposed on the flock of machines of a human farm, as well as the fear of punishment, jail or hell. The problem of being in society pushes between the political confrontations and the media show, sports, fighting against each other, religious confrontation, and ideological or geographical struggle, etc. Toxic by lies and deception, it is impossible to carry out a real, honest, and deep examination. There is no time. The 1,000 daily activity are eating day by day. You have to go to work. You have to earn money to pay the bills. The fanatic consumption has made the week of space to rent, to accept order exchange for money, giving away the energy that is not properly managed. Giving talents a trample on every working day. Most employees do not enjoy their work. They hate their bosses, their organization charge, and the products they manufacture or sell. The control and surveillance are constantly. Punishment are given that increase uncertainty and insecurity. It warns those who leave the production chain that feed the dynamics of the system that works only in favor of a small elite that is considered the owner of the world. Negative headquarters. And this is how the citizen communicates, accepts, and is tired of working, resigned to a bit of false fun, to silence his miserable existence, convincing himself daily that this is the reason in life. The meaning of his existence is based on serving and accepting the system with which he collaborates and helps to perpetuate, precisely because of his passivity or conformism. Obey, submit, find this way of thinking or being correct. He is convinced that nothing can be done to change the current situation, but is another negative influence of the system. Men and women serve voluntarily to cover all the purpose of those who teach them to live within the system, especially through the classical economic mechanism. Money is the more powerful weapon, but can you live without money? Of course. A plane that falls from the sky to the sea or a shipwreck. In both cases, they are survivors who arrive on an island. They will be able to organize themselves and live in a community without paper money meditating between them and the others. To be safe, it is precisely the gift and talent that they manage to apply to facilitate their coexistence and stability, never their belief or laws, titles, or possession, which they learn how to live with. The only norm will be love. In another word, empathy, solidarity, respect, reciprocal help, mutual trust, shared joy, fundamental humanistic principles that are not reflected in the system today. Those who seek the truth find themselves. The acceptance of the code and belief of the system entails dogmatism and generate the unique thought that only benefit the system. Turn off the switch of the external and turn off the switch of the intimacy is a huge to the cosmic knowledge and the energy that throbs in the soul that yearns to have presence in society.